There are always trips that you will always remember. For me, mine is the trip to Chicago with the Richfield High School band. This was the Chicago story. Trip, day one. Time was about 7:33 in the morning, and we're heading off on the trip. We're not left the school yet, but we're on our way. We're gonna get ready soon. I'm excited. We're just leaving the high school now. Next stop, Wisconsin Dells. That's where our first stop is gonna be. We just met our bus driver Gary and one of our chaperone Doug's. Pretty nice people. So now we're going somewhere around the Dells for lunch in about 3 hours. I'll check in a little bit. We're gonna start voting on the movies now. It's gonna be exciting. It was time to leave for Chicago, and we were off. It was going to be a really interesting trip, and we were all excited to leave. The movies were starting to play, and we were excited to get started. Right after we got off the bus to go to lunch, we first saw a horse and buggy, which is pretty unusual because you don't see that everywhere unless you are going on camping trips with Boy Scouts in Amish country.
Hey, Mr. Cookies, I love cookies. I pulled up to the bus and I said I'm at the right school when I saw the cookies, so I'm ready to go. All right, so let's have fun. We'll be here shortly.
We got off the bus, and the first thing we see after the stairwell was this beautiful image of the skyline. Our first stop was the William Harrison Lee Company, makers of fine violins and cellos. We saw how they made a bunch of musical instruments, and it was cool to see a factory on how beautiful instruments are made and where they start off to sounding something beautiful in the end. After touring the factory and seeing how these instruments were made, we got a chance to see on how to play these instruments, and that was something funny because a lot of us have never played these instruments before, so you could see that we all failed pretty bad at it.
I'll stay with that, you guys.
Somebody else want to try cello?
Can we try it?
And kind of failing at these instruments was kind of what everyone did, except for Alex and Jake, as which you can see in the next clip here. When they tried out their bass, it was pretty funny because we weren't expecting much from them, but man, could they play.
Oh,
Yeah!
Don't do it.
Alex, do not play that.
Do it.
Do it, no, just do it, just do it. I don't know, what am I doing?
Just do it.
Do it!
Give me something, give me something, give me something. Give me something.
No.
Seven Nation meme? Where's... It's amazing. I can only do that for so long before I actually...
I want to find it.
I can't do this for so long. Yosef, big man.
Do I look big to you? I'm 5'8".
I got to test out a violin, which I hadn't played in years, but whatever. We had a lot of smiling faces, and this place was a bunch of interesting things inside this small factory. Well, afterwards, we went to the Water Place Tower Mall, and we was this weird elevator there, and we also saw a lot of the Chicago skylife, which was really fun to hang around in, and to see everyone just out in the nightlife was something that you've never seen before. Those two had begun, and we were going to the Field Museum of Natural History. Now, this museum didn't just have stuff with history, but it also showed a bunch of cool science stuff like geodes and this giant Tyrannosaurus Rex named Sue. I think it is the world's most completed dinosaur ever. There was a bunch of arrowheads that was also cool in this one exhibit we saw. But the main reason why we were there was to perform there for a concert for a free show. It was an interesting way because the acoustics in there are so different that the balances don't really go the same. So you really have to learn how to play right for this space because there isn't a good way to play it otherwise. We rode the bus for a while, and we were getting a little tired after our trip from the museum, but when we got off, we saw the statue of Abraham Lincoln and a man. I thought it was a really interesting statue to be shown in the middle of public. The reason why we were here, though, was to go on a river boat tour of around the rivers of Chicago in the cities on this ferry boat. It docked right in front of the Trump Tower, which my friend Owen was really happy about because he's a Trump supporter, and that was something that he was really excited to see. Right away when the tour started, we saw a bunch of skyline and the city being built, and that was a cool experience. Another cool thing was seeing this dam open up. Here it is in fast time. The tour was beautiful. It was literally something that I've never seen before here. It was because looking at this awesome view of the city from waterfront is something that I don't ever get to see here in the cities that much because they don't have that type of touring here. It was a miracle we even actually got a chance to go on to Lake Michigan because it was foggy the entire trip we were there. And when we got on the boat, it was the pure beautiful part of the whole trip where the fog just cleared and you were able to enjoy the weather and go on the city and everything else. And this trip was something that I will always remember because of how beautiful the city skyline was looking off from the lake. Our next stop for the day was Millennium Park, where we actually got a chance to see the bean and a bunch of other sculptures from the whole city. Here's something interesting that you don't know. The bean is one piece of metal. It's not multiple mirrored edges, but it is one piece of metal that is so reflective when you look underneath it. I thought this was a beautiful thing, and it's great for taking photos and selfies with as well. Well, as we were walking, I got to take a few great photos of like the city skyline with the taxi and this awesome amphitheater here. There was also a bunch of playgrounds that they said for kids 12 and under, but we really didn't care and we went on there anyways and we kind of just messed around and acted like teenagers and just had time to let loose and get to know each other that when we really hadn't got a chance to know each other much before. We made a friendship that was a lot stronger, and no one really could take that away from us ever again. That night, we went to the Hard Rock Cafe in Chicago. It was really good. I got a t shirt. After that, we went to a Broadway in Chicago performance to see Circus 1903, the golden age of circus at the Oriental Theater. That show was something amazing, and I would love to see it again if it came around. It was day 3, our last day in Chicago, and we went already to go on a master class to perform and get taught on how to play our instruments even better. It was something that was really memorable and that you could really learn something about in the end. After the master class, we went on a walk on the city. Owen found the sign that said "Shame on you, Paul Ryan," and we was waving around at a bunch of cars and taxis, and they kept honking at him until finally someone threw it off of a bridge, and we thought he was gonna jump off after it. Another interesting thing about there was that a bunch of lift bridges there as well. That a lot of the bridges over the river system are lift bridges. After that, we went to the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago's Money Museum. There, they had a bunch of displays showing $1 million by a bunch of different cash amounts. And one of the coolest ones was $1 million worth of coins, and because it was all lit up on this see-through floor, and we all kind of put anyone that had Converse put their shoes there to take this really awesome photo there. After that, we went to the zoo and saw a bunch of animals there, and that was our last trip there, and it was a great way to end off the day. After that, we went home, and
the best thing I can remember is just seeing all the friends I made through this trip. A lot of them kind of moved on now to college, a couple moved them off to different states, but I still keep in contact with them because these are the people that I now call my friends, and I'm so glad that I got to share this beautiful trip with them.